I remember the first time I watched a crime movie that actually felt dangerous. I was way too young, sitting in the back of a smoky independent theater, and I realized for the first time that this genre isn't just about guys in suits with guns. It's about the crushing weight of the choices we make when we think nobody is looking. Most crime films are just noise, all flash, and no soul. But the truly great ones, they stay with you. Today, we are counting down the 10 best crime movies ever made. This list isn't just about the biggest box office hits, it's about the films that genuinely changed the DNA of cinema. Drop a subscribe if you're staying. If you love movies as much as I do, this is where you belong. Kicking things off at number 10 is a film that I genuinely believe is the most perfect procedural ever put to screen. Before he won every Oscar in existence for Parasite, Bong Joon-ho made Memories of Murder, a film based on the true story of South Korea's first serial killer. What makes this film so brilliant is that it's not about a genius detective outsmarting a criminal. It's about the utter frustration and incompetence of three men trying to solve a puzzle in a world that doesn't have all the pieces. There's a specific scene in a muddy field early in the film where the lead detective is trying to secure a crime scene while children are running around and a tractor is literally driving over the evidence. It's funny in a dark, pathetic way, but it also tells you exactly how hopeless this investigation is going to be. On Letterboxd, this film is constantly cited for its perfect ending, where the protagonist looks directly into the lens of the camera, and it is honestly one of the most haunting shots in history. It's a movie that understands that in the real world, justice isn't always a guarantee. If you like the slow burn obsession of a movie like Zodiac, you need to find this immediately. It is a masterpiece of tone that refuses to give you the easy answers you want. At number 9 is a film that I think is the ultimate idiot crime movie. The Coen brothers' Fargo is a masterclass in how a single, desperate decision can spiral into a total bloodbath. It follows Jerry Lundegaard, a car salesman who hires two low-level crooks to kidnap his own wife so he can extort money from his wealthy father-in-law. It's a plan that is doomed from the very first second because Jerry is a man who thinks he's much smarter than he actually is. What makes Fargo so brilliant is the contrast, the blinding white of the Minnesota snow against the bright red of the violence. Frances McDormand's performance as Marge Gunderson is genuinely one of the greatest things I have ever seen. She is the moral center of the film, a pregnant police chief who is just trying to understand why someone would kill people for a little bit of money. There is, of course, the infamous wood chipper scene, but for me, the most impactful moment is Marge eating her lunch in a local diner while discussing the case. It grounds the horror of the crime in the mundane reality of everyday life. It's a film that knows that real criminals aren't masterminds. They're just people making terrible choices in a very cold place. It is funny, it is brutal, and it is properly iconic. Number 8 belongs to a film that I've talked about before in the context of thrillers, but you cannot have a crime list without it. David Fincher's Seven is the ultimate example of a city that is completely surrendered to its own rot. It follows two detectives, one young and arrogant, one old and exhausted, as they track a killer who is punishing people for the 7 deadly sins. I will literally go to my grave arguing that this is one of the most atmospheric films ever made. Fincher and his cinematographer, Darius Kanji, made every frame look like it was dipped in motor oil. There is a specific scene where the detectives enter the gluttony crime scene, and the sheer detail of the room, the rows of canned food, the grease on the walls, the constant oppressive sound of the rain outside is properly disturbing. It makes you feel like you need to take a shower as soon as the credits roll. Morgan Freeman is incredible here, playing a man who has seen too much and just wants to retire, but he's pulled back into the darkness one last time. This film was a massive hit when it came out, but it's its lasting legacy on Reddit and film forums that shows its true power. People are still arguing about that ending 30 years later because it's one of the few times a big-budget Hollywood movie had the guts to be that uncompromisingly dark. It's a cold, hard look at the price of apathy. At number 7 is a film that I genuinely believe is Martin Scorsese's most vibrant and underrated masterpiece. Casino is often compared to Goodfellas, but I think it's doing something much more interesting. It's looking at the business of crime and how ego eventually destroys everything it builds. It stars Robert De Niro as Ace Rothstein, a gambling expert sent by the mob to run a casino in Las Vegas, and Joe Pesci as Nicky Santoro, his violent enforcer. What makes Casino brilliant is the sheer scale of the storytelling. It's 3 hours of high-stakes drama that moves at the speed of a bullet. The costumes, the neon lights of the strip, and the intricate details of how the skim works, how money is taken from the counting room and moved back to the bosses, is just fascinating to watch. There is a specific scene in the desert where Nicky and Ace meet, and you can see the absolute power dynamic shifting as the sun sets behind them. It's a film about the end of an era. It's about how the mob lost Vegas to the corporations because they couldn't stop fighting each other. Joe Pesci is properly terrifying here, playing a man who is so volatile that you feel nervous every time he's on screen. It's loud, it's mean, and it's one of the most stylish crime movies ever made. If you haven't revisited this in a while, do it. It's better than you remember. Number 6 belongs to a film that uses a single room to build a legend that spans the entire globe. The Usual Suspects follows 5 criminals who are brought together for a random police lineup, only to be forced into a high-stakes heist by a mysterious crime lord named Kaiser Soze. What makes this movie so intoxicating is the screenplay by Christopher McQuarrie. It's a puzzle box of a film where every line of dialogue is a potential clue. Kevin Spacey gives a performance that is properly iconic as Verbal Kint, the one survivor who is being interrogated by the police. The way he spins this sprawling, complex tale of betrayal and violence is just spectacular. There is a specific shot at the very end of the film, the limp that slowly becomes a confident walk, that is one of the most famous reveals in cinema history. But the real brilliance is how the movie builds that reveal. It's about the power of storytelling itself and how we believe what we want to believe as long as it's told with enough confidence. On YouTube and film blogs, this is the movie that everyone remembers for the twist, but the chemistry between the 5 leads in that holding cell is what actually makes it work. Coming in at number 5 is the film that I consider to be the absolute gold standard for the heist genre. Michael Mann's Heat is a 3-hour urban epic that follows the parallel lives of a professional thief, played by Robert De Niro, and the obsessive detective trying to take him down, played by Al Pacino. This was the first time these two titans were actually on screen together, and the anticipation at the time was properly insane. But the film isn't just a vehicle for its stars, it is a masterclass in technical filmmaking. I have to talk about the street shootout after the bank heist because it is, without question, the most realistic 10 minutes of action ever put to film. Michael Mann famously decided not to use studio-recorded sound effects for the gunfire. Instead, he used the actual audio of the blanks echoing off the glass and steel skyscrapers of downtown Los Angeles. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's genuinely terrifying. Then you have the legendary diner scene where the two leads finally meet face to face. There are no stunts, no explosions, just 2 men sitting over coffee, acknowledging that they are both trapped by who they are. It's a film about the cost of being the best at what you do, and it is visually intoxicating from start to finish. If you want to see a heist movie that has a soul, this is it. Number 4 is The Law. You simply cannot have a conversation about crime cinema without talking about Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather. It is the film that took the gangster movie and turned it into a Shakespearean tragedy about family, power, and the corruption of the American dream. It follows the Corleone family as the aging patriarch passes the torch to his youngest son, Michael, who starts the film as a war hero and ends it as a monster. Marlon Brando's performance is properly legendary, but for me, the real brilliance is in the structure. The baptism sequence at the end of the film is one of the most famous pieces of editing in history, cross-cutting between Michael standing as a godfather to his nephew and the brutal coordinated hits he has ordered across the city. It's a literal merging of the sacred and the profane that tells you everything you need to know about who Michael has become. I honestly think people forget how visceral this movie is because it's been so widely parodied, but when you actually sit down and watch it, the stillness of it is what gets you. It's a movie that doesn't need to shout to be powerful. It is an architectural masterwork of storytelling that changed the industry forever. It's not just a movie, it's a cultural landmark. At number 3 is a movie I have seen probably 30 times, and it still feels like a jolt of pure electricity every single time I press play. Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas is the ultimate insider look at the mafia, based on the true story of Henry Hill. While The Godfather treated the mob like royalty, Goodfellas treats it like a high-speed, cocaine-fueled fever dream. The pacing here is just spectacular. I have to talk about the funny how scene with Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta. It's one of the most stressful sequences in cinema history because it captures the exact moment where the laughter stops and you realize you are sitting at a table with a predator. It was largely improvised, and you can feel that raw, unpredictable tension in every frame. Then you have the legendary Copacabana tracking shot, which follows Henry and Karen through the back entrance of the club. It's not just a technical flex, it's a way to make the viewer feel the allure and the absolute power of that lifestyle. On Letterboxd, this is often cited as the most rewatchable movie ever made, and I find it hard to disagree. It is loud, it is violent, and it is a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated style. Speaking of films that somehow manage to improve on perfection, at number 2 is The Godfather Part 2. I will go to my grave arguing that this is the rare sequel that is actually better than the original. It's a much darker, more ambitious film that uses a parallel narrative to show the rise of a young Vito Corleone in the early 1900s alongside the moral collapse of his son, Michael, in the 1950s. Robert De Niro is extraordinary as the young Vito, capturing Brando's mannerisms without ever feeling like an impression. But the heart of the movie is Michael's isolation. There is a specific shot at the end of the film where Michael is sitting alone in a chair at Lake Tahoe, and the look in Al Pacino's eyes is properly devastating. He has won every war. He has defeated every enemy. And in doing so, he has destroyed his own soul and lost his family. It is one of the most heartbreaking endings in the history of the medium. The contrast between Vito's rise, which was built on community and family, and Michael's reign, which is built on fear and betrayal, is a genius piece of writing. It is a dense, complex, and deeply moving film that demands your full attention. It's a masterpiece. No genre qualifier needed. Number 1 belongs to the film that didn't just win the Palme d'Or. It completely rewired the way we think about structure, dialogue, and style in the crime genre. Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction is the ultimate turning point in modern cinema. It's a non-linear sprawl through the Los Angeles underworld, following 2 philosophical hitmen, a boxer on the run, a gangster's wife, and a pair of very unlucky diner bandits. When this first hit theaters in 1994, it was like a bomb went off. I've read countless stories from that era about people literally walking back into the lobby and buying another ticket immediately just to figure out how Tarantino pulled it off. The dialogue is what everyone remembers, those long, winding conversations about European fast food and foot massages, but the reason it works is that it makes these killers feel properly human before the violence starts. There is a specific sequence that still makes my heart race every time. The adrenaline shot to the heart. The way the camera stays tight on Mia Wallace's face, the frantic energy of the characters, and that sudden gasping jump back to life, it is one of the most visceral moments ever captured on film. On YouTube and film schools everywhere, people talk about the Tarantino effect, but almost nobody has been able to replicate the exact blend of dark humor and genuine tension he achieved here. It's a movie that rewards you for paying attention to the smallest details, like the contents of a glowing briefcase or the timing of a bathroom break. 30 years later, it hasn't aged a day. It is the coolest movie ever made. End of story. And that is the top 10. 10 films that prove the crime genre is about so much more than just heist plans and shootouts. It's a mirror held up to the darkest parts of the human experience, showing us the cost of greed, the weight of loyalty, and the absolute chaos of a life lived outside the law. Whether it's the Shakespearean tragedy of The Godfather or the pop culture explosion of Pulp Fiction, these are the movies that remind me why I love cinema. They don't just show us the crime, they make us accomplices in the journey. The range of what these directors achieved, from the snowy silence of Fargo to the neon-soaked ego of Casino, is properly inspiring. Which film on this list is your personal number 1? I know people are going to have strong feelings about the order, so drop it in the comments. If this list sent you back to your watch list, a quick thumbs up helps a lot. The algorithm actually responds to it, and it helps this channel reach the people who need it.